Okay.
Welcome to Embrace Joy, where we are walking the road to restoration. Today is going to be a very special podcast because we are joined with an amazing woman who is changing lives based on her education and her experience. Holly Menard is a certified life mastery consultant with the Brave Thinking Institute. She actually has a background as a registered nurse. She is a cancer massage therapist. She's worked as a Reiki practitioner, and now she specializes as an end of life doula. I just love the fact that Holly comes from a background of family who are physicians and nurses. So she took that family lineage, but she also embraced even more of that and looked outside of the box to help so many other people in more of a world view. She definitely has taken the education that she has to have a sense of purpose, to help so many people. After losing her oldest son, she made a commitment to herself to live her life fully and be an inspiration to others. And during this podcast, I know you will see her heart and learn so much as she helps those who are stuck in their grief to come alive and discover their resilience. So, Holly, thank you so much for joining us today. And I am so excited about what you will be able to share based on your particular life journey.
Yes, so good morning. Good morning, Joy, and good morning to everyone who will be watching this podcast. I'm really honored to be a guest here today. One thing I definitely want to set the tone for the time that we have together. And one of the things is going to be breath, because I feel like breath is probably the most powerful thing wherever it is that we are in the moment to bring ourselves to be present. It's like breath is like a prayer. You can see it that way.
Well, let's go ahead and take a couple seconds to go ahead and set that intention and go ahead and take a deep breath. If you believe in a higher power, that you will go ahead and take that breath to ask God to open up your mind for what you're going to hear today. So we're going to go ahead and take a deep breath. So important to remember to do that throughout the day. And it seems simple, but how many of us get trapped in our thoughts and we forget to breathe? So I love that that is one of the tools that you use, not just for grounding yourself, but also teaching other people the value of breath. So I know I shared a little bit in your bio about your background, but can you kind of tell me a little bit about why you became a coach specializing in end of life?
I would love to. The way that I look at how I serve as a life mastery consultant, a transformational life coach, is that I incorporate the fact that we're all on this journey, whether we have a diagnosis or not. You know, we have this birth date, a celebration. Most of us look at it that way, right? And then we have that end date. We all do. We all do. So where are we in the midst of that lifetime, and what are we doing with it? How happy are we in our life, in our relationships, in our health, every area? Do we love our work? Do we have the time and the money to be able to do what it is that we would like, and then get going and start making it happen, create that vision, that dream?
Definitely. And it is a celebration, and a lot of people don't think about it that way. But that beginning of your life, yes, we have a date for the end, But if you are a believer in Christ, that date of the end is a celebration for those of us that believe in Christ. So as you work with, again, as a life coach, what are some principles that you share with others to have them realize that their life can be abundant, even if they are experiencing the health diagnosis, either a caretaker or the person going through that health diagnosis?
Hmm. All right, we'll dive in. I feel that it's important for me to share about this life-changing moment because I also want everyone here to be thinking about a life-changing moment that they've had. It may look similar to mine. It may be the loss of a son or a child or a beloved. It may be someone you know of, perhaps somebody who has a diagnosis and has found their way to your YouTube. And yeah, the opportunities that exist here for everyone. And I do believe that our experiences inform the way we choose to live our life. Briefly, I will say that I was going along with life, seemed like it was pretty good. Had a family business along with my massage therapy, but I really wasn't feeling fulfilled. I wasn't waking up with some passion in my being, some aliveness, and the gratitude that comes along with that. Excuse me, until one day, then everything changed. Everything changed. My son left the business that we were operating together, and he was off to this wonderful concert with a friend. He was so happy. And as we normally do, we gave each other a hug and said, I love you, and off he went. 5 hours later, I get this call from my husband. And it just so happened we had recently signed separation papers. So we were in the midst of that. I had already moved out of the house. So there was a lot going on. What I didn't know was that I would totally see this day, this next 24 hours, as the most life-changing moment of heartbreak and what on earth is my life going to look like? How come I'm alive and my son isn't? So we had this 24 hours and then we said goodbye. We never got to talk to him. He was not conscious, but we talked to him anyway. And in the months and even in the years going onward, I actually, as an aside, I wish that I had had these tools that I now have as a transformational life coach, because then I would have realized that, number one, there is a power that's greater than us, that when we're in the midst of this intense grief, feeling up against a wall, wondering, how am I going to put one foot in front of the other? Day by day, it was just doing it. Sometimes it was just going through the motions of living. That I wish I knew, even though I saw myself as spiritual. I know I had a prayer meditation practice. I've realized that it was time to go deeper into that inner experience and that I couldn't do it on my own. So in my own way, I did find that way to go deeper. And now I know there's even a deeper way, because all I could do is okay, so this is a brave thinking tool. What can I do from where I am with what I've got? So that would have served me so, so well. And I was where I was, right? So I had wonderful friends. I had a spiritual community that means ever so much to me, and friends in general. And so I did move forward, and I did decide, you know what? I took a trip to India, came back, and as a result, I knew I wanted to be a conscious entrepreneur. I didn't want to go about my life the way I had before. I didn't really want to be involved with the family business. I didn't really want to be doing what it was that I was doing. So I was open. And in that openness, out of the blue, I found out about end-of-life doulas. Never heard of them before. Really. It was like, what? So I was drawn immediately to the site. Found out everything I could. 2 months later, I was a professionally certified end-of-life doula right before the pandemic. So we're talking about a period of time. It took a while for me to process and travel the journey to where I was, where my life started opening up. And I realized, oh my goodness, there are other people that have experienced an experience like mine. And there are people who have a diagnosis who are journeying to the end of their life. And what are some ways that I can be there for them so that they feel cared for, that they actually have power within them to make decisions that are independent, to be in the driver's seat instead of allowing things, the doctor knows it all, so I'll just go along with what he says, or my family feels so strongly. Keep going, keep going. I know there's these other treatments you could do. Let's go for it. And maybe that person doesn't want to go for it. And maybe they do. It's really a matter of what does that person want? So as a doula, that's what I'm interested in. I want to know, what do you want? How would you love the rest of your life to look? And let's get to it. Let's get to working on that planning and preparing. And as early as possible is when I would love to start working with people, because there's so many creative ways that we can go about working together and making decisions that can be difficult, and having this person find that power that they have within them to have tough conversations. Forgiveness, because not everybody's proud of the way that they've lived, right? And this is there are opportunities, because it's, like, I know Holly, we've built a relationship. I trust her. And so we work together to find within that person, that they have to find it themselves within them to be able to say, hey, let's sit down and talk. The way
first of all, I just thank you so much for your vulnerability and in sharing. And I'm so sorry about the loss of your son. And, each one of us goes through some type of grief and loss. And a parent should never lose a child before they pass. That's what we think, but we don't know. We don't know God's plan. And I know we have talked before about, I lost my brother to an accidental drowning when he was only 27. And I love how you put a lot out there that we want to kind of unpack. Is a person who feels stuck and they feel like once that grief has happened, maybe they have some guilt. I know you had the opportunity to hug your son before he went on. And so you had that closure in a lot of ways where you were able to say, I love you. So many people weren't able to do that. And I know that you have helped people through that particular, so that sometimes they hold it as like a false shame. And so I know you help people in that area as well. But just knowing that you were worthy to go forward, you were able to use your experience to move forward. And I love that particular principle as well, is do what you want to do with what you have, where you are, and you did not stay stuck. Now, you allowed yourself to grieve. And I think that's the most important part that people forget to do, is to grieve. And it's not going to happen overnight. I know we had talked before, it's been 9 years, correct?
Yes, right. And he was young. He was just about to turn 34.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
You never know when it's going to happen. And I know
Yeah.
there are individuals too where, that you've worked with, that they are in that stage of the end of life. It's not a sudden death. And so, like you said, helping them find out what other treatments are available, to not just stop and say, well, they said I'm going to die, so I'm just going to go ahead and wake up one morning and I'm still not dead yet. Right? That's not a quality of life at all. So as you work with individuals, I know that they are full of so many emotions. So the grief is just overwhelming for the day. What are some ways that you use to help them process those emotions every day so they can have more of a positive outlook?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I did want to just backtrack because some people want to be the ones that say, no more treatment. So it works that way too. It can, sometimes people are like, they want to have their loved one around as long as possible. And that person is, look, I'm not enjoying life as much as I would like to. The side effects of the chemo are just, it's not a quality of life that I want. I want to play with my grandchildren on the floor. I want to eat food that I like. I want to, maybe go on a long weekend vacation. I want to live. I want to live. I'm not dead now. I want to live my life. Yeah, so that's what we do. And I'm going to have everybody take a deep breath again because I truly am about you kind of diving in this short time that we have into your own experience.
Mm.
Yeah, so
Well, let's go ahead and do that.
yeah. So imagine that this is your experience. And I'm going to say that it starts with our thoughts. It starts with what we're thinking of. Some things are fact. I mean, a lot of things are fact. It's like my beloved, my son in this case, is no longer with me. Now, I'm not going to hug him again. I'm not going to hear his voice. And I will say, not in the way that I'm used to hearing it. So we can kind of hem ourselves in really easily into, we've got the facts. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, I didn't do something right. If I had just, or if they had just had a better lifestyle, we can really spin this whole thing in our thoughts. And the facts are not the same thing as the spinning around of the thoughts. So the more we become aware of, become ones who notice what it is that we're thinking, then, very important, pulling it in here, we can change that channel. Just like you change a channel on TV, it's like, oh, that's not what I want to watch. You tune it to a channel that brings you happiness. You have interest in it, right? Your attention is right there with it, and leave the other channel. It's okay to do. I found out, I just couldn't stop crying. This is an aside again. When I was driving, or certain places that I would be in the day, I would just cry so much. And then I realized, you know what? I could turn the radio on. Yeah. So I don't need to have this same energy flowing. I didn't know what I was doing, but change the frequency. And that's so powerful. And another thing, a way that you can do this is go outside. Take a walk and appreciate the nature. Like right now, we have this glorious spring going on. And for some, it's kind of coming and going, where depending on where you are in the world, right? But where I am, it's so beautiful. So get outside and really smell some fresh air as much as you can. call someone that you dearly love, who you feel like when you're with them, they nourish your soul. So these are some things that you can do. Play your favorite music, just change that frequency. And then here's the next thing. Experience what you're experiencing. Or you could say, notice what you're noticing. Because you've got your thoughts, and then your thoughts create your feelings. And that can be a downward spiral. You check with your experience, you get that thought going, and all the emotions that go along with it. And pretty soon, if you attend to those thoughts, you go downward, right? You kind of dig a hole for yourself. So again, change the channel, notice what you're noticing, and choose, sometimes I've heard it called, you like reach for a thought that can give you some life, something you love. And like, I love the smell of coffee. I love freshly cut lawns, something so simple, or a funny show, a funny movie, and something, stirs up within that. We have choice. I think one of the biggest things when we're grieving is like, oh, my life, it's never going to be the same. That's a fact. Um, but the thought that it could be other than that, what if it's one foot in front of the next? And you brought out joy. You used the term moving forward. A lot of people use the term moving on. We never move on. That's so important. In our thoughts, in our feelings, the actions that we take are all going to be influenced by that experience. I mean, we can sometimes recall it as if it was yesterday or as if it was right now. That used to happen, and it still does. It brings tears to my eyes, which means so much love. So much love. If we have not loved, then we can't really know loss. Because we've experienced such a great love. Even though there may be some mixed emotions in there, doing our best. And there is love there that can be brought into someone's consciousness.
One
Yeah.
thing that you mentioned is, instead of saying moving on, to saying moving forward. And I know that a lot of times people want to help someone who is going through grief and loss, and they just don't know what to say. And so them saying, well, just go ahead and move on. You were blessed with that amount of time with them. So just, they're gone. So just, start living your life the next day and be done. And so oftentimes when we go through that grief and loss, we need to make sure that other people's thoughts and words do not affect our thoughts and our feelings. So really important for their energy not to affect our energy. And like you had mentioned, our thoughts are very, very powerful, but we can go ahead and draw out the truth of our life rather than the lies. For example, so at the end of my mother's life, it was a very extreme death, and not pleasant to watch at all. And I could focus just on those last, week and a half, but I choose to think very consciously of the life that she lived, the joy that she experienced in life, and hold on to that energy of her testimony. And like you said, it's based on love, that the loss is even greater, but more life changing, holding on to that because of the love that we have for another person. So thank you so much for sharing that. Definitely. So important. So, as you mentioned, people deciding what they're going to do at the end of life. Again, other individuals may want to influence their decision. However, they're accepting or having peace based on they're ready to go.
Mhm.
So how do you help them explain to other people that this is their choice and
Mm.
how to set those boundaries with other people based on what they want for their end of life?
Mm. Time for another breath. Yes, because whatever way it is, I want to go for it. I want every treatment. I had one client who, that's what she wanted. The thing of it is it wasn't working. It wasn't working. And the fluid was building up in her lungs regardless of this procedure that had helped earlier. And her daughter was she was distressed because she had watched and her family had watched their father die. And he was in a whole nother kind of a place. He was in a place of more, here we are. It's happening. Whatever that conversation is, and it's so important to have that conversation. How I want things. Make those decisions, how I want things. A lot of people, this is on another kind of chat, but about food and drink. When a person themselves is going through, moving toward the end of their life, they can also be an educator and say, you know what, don't feed me. The doula will also say that it can be more harmful. I know you love making these special dishes. I know you want to love me, and food is a way, or favorite drink or whatever it happens to be. It's not helpful. And then as a doula, I would reinforce that. And if hospice is there, we're all in accord, we're all one with how we're going to proceed. And when there's a plan, when a person has a plan for that, I want this person to come. I don't want this person to come. And that goes back to, the conversations that people may say things that are really not helpful. I mean, really bless them that there is a benevolent place that they're coming from. And again, I use this word because I've heard it. It's ignorance. We just don't know. All we know is what we've been taught, right? So when somebody's ill, or in the case since you brought it up, has already died, has already passed, then some things not to say are, he's better off, she's better off, she's better off. They're not really gone. You just need to get on with your life now. I'm so sorry for this, and just kind of dwell in what an awful thing it is that's happened. Sometimes those people, in an ideal world, with the education on the part of the person who's receiving that kind of those words, to say, you know what, I think I need to go. Just in some way, just say no. It's like, I have somewhere I need to go. And surround yourself. In this area, I can say it more intensely, and it's just so important. Surround yourself with people who will nourish your soul, nourish your spirit, however it is that you really feel loved. And there's no requirement for you to feel like you need to maybe even help them feel better. Some people do feel that way. It's, oh, please don't be upset. It's like, no, no, let's not go there. Let's if some people, even if it's one person, maybe it's their minister, their pastor, or someone who's connected in the community that they know of. It's another family member, whoever it might be. It's like you want that person
Mhm,
in your court. That's
mhm,
who you want,
mhm.
because they're going to see that. Take this the right way. Yes, you can. It's not like we're skipping over anything. You notice what you're noticing. And if there's any kind of feelings, whether it's a person who's still journeying toward the end of their life or someone who's living with that grief, because there's grief, there's grief in being alive still in that journey toward the end of life, right?
Mhm.
So we're looking at that grief, and yeah, you call it what it is. Surround yourself with people that you love, and even if it's one person, then it's okay. It's okay to, it's your life. I'm speaking this to whoever's out there who may be wondering and already has experienced those unhelpful kind of comments. And you know that they're doing their best from where they are, where they're
Mhm.
coming from, not helpful. So just exit stage left, so to speak. Um, and it's not really funny. It's empowering. It's empowering. And the next thing that I feel is equally important is forgiveness. And let's say we're talking to someone who is journeying toward the end of their life, and they have someone that they haven't talked to in years. Like
Mm.
I know of at least one someone who hasn't talked to their child. That it wasn't a relationship that was healthy, or for whatever reason, there's estrangement that's going on. Then it's possible. It's possible that there could be a connection. Sometimes the doula picks up on that, and it's like, well, if you could be a little willing, maybe, what could you do? What could you do to let this person know that you're now open to having a conversation? That can be so huge.
Mhm.
I mean, because who knows where that person is on the other side, wherever they happen to be. They could be around the corner and they haven't talked for years, you know? And they could be past. They could be not in this world anymore. And there are still conversations that can be had. It's like if a person feels like, I was a bad actor. I wish I hadn't made those mistakes. And I'm doing my best, because forgiveness ultimately is we're forgiving ourselves. Very important.
Mhm.
We
Mhm.
forgive others, but if we're not forgiving ourselves, authentic forgiveness begins with us forgiving ourselves.
Mm.
It's so powerful, because it's like, I would have done better if I had known. And or it's like not being able to forgive someone who's journeying or has already died. I'm doing the best I can. It's hard. I have to say, it's difficult to forgive you, and I'm doing my best.
Mm.
So regardless of, I mean, it's not the word. I mean, there's always a way to create that little window where forgiveness can happen.
Mm.
And that makes such a difference for people as they're moving forward in their life, to whether it's toward the end of their journey and they know that they have that diagnosis or not, and they're just they're living in their life, and they know there's something that's happened in the past, and thinking about it and feeling through it, then new decisions can be made. New
Mm.
conversations could be had. Even not even, but letters could be written. So, I mean, I could go on and on about forgiveness, because that's one of my passions, truly. It's forgiveness ceremonies for people.
And
And
even not just in the
gratitude.
end of life, but many of our listeners have experienced other types of trauma. And so focusing on that forgiveness actually helps you physically. And so I love the fact that that is one of the things that you focus on with end of life, and even caretakers, is making sure that they release any of that negative energy so that they can begin to have peace physically and emotionally and spiritually. Because and it shouldn't just be waiting until the end of life when we go ahead and focus on forgiveness. We need to do that
But it could be.
today. Right. But it's important for us to
Yeah.
realize that that healing needs to happen. And it's not for the other person, it's for us to release that bondage. So I appreciate you mentioning that. I also wanted to go back to how you recommend people setting boundaries. So if someone says something, and it's not that they are doing something wrong, they just don't know what to say.
Exactly.
If they say something that is hurtful, to set that boundary and say, thanks a lot, I'm leaving. I so powerful. It may not be exactly saying that way, obviously, but we have the right to not accept the words of another person, no matter how much they care for us. And I know I had an individual who had lost their mother very suddenly when she was in her 50s. And so when I lost my mother, which she made it to 92, and we have no, I mean, she was sick for many, many, many years. And every day she thought, why am I still waking up alive? Well, so that this particular person said, you don't have the right to grieve because she lived a very full life and you don't understand that I am the one that needs to grieve. And you don't have, yeah, you don't have a right to grieve because she lived a very full life. Well, I definitely walked away. I was not going to accept that, but those
Good for
particular
you.
words. I may be grieving differently than that person was grieving, but that didn't make my grief any less. So
Yeah.
yeah, setting those
Yeah.
boundaries goes so, so powerful. So thanks for mentioning that. And I'm also going to go back to one of the other things that you mentioned, because I really think we need to unpack this even more, is conversations.
Yes.
Having that conversation ahead of time, having a power of attorney, no matter how young you are, to make those documents. Have someone as a power of attorney that you can trust, and then create the DNR and have that legally, go in and get that certified. Not the word certified. I can't think of the word.
Notarized.
Notarized. Thank you. Notarized, because explaining to them, what do you want in your funeral? What do you not, as far as who's visiting you? That's so important. So thank you for saying
Mhm.
that. But
If
also,
there's somebody disruptive in the room, that's again where doula, it's like, let's go outside and, maybe get some fresh air.
mhm,
Or, encourage family members to go out for a meal or something like that.
mhm.
Out there for respite.
I love the fact that that is one of your specialties. So it comes, even if somebody's not in hospice, to have that individual to recognize what that person needs, for example. So,
Safety, as a doula, we're like first and foremost, it's like we're all about that person being safe,
mhm,
physically, emotionally, mentally safe.
mhm,
And sometimes the environment is not safe.
So thanks for mentioning that. So, so powerful. So I hope that the ones that are listening today, just, there's so many things that you have mentioned that I want to unpack, but we can't do everything all at once. But if there's questions that people have, I know that I'm going to go ahead and put in the descriptions a link where they can contact you directly. But and again, I know you've had a lot of education in addition to your experiences, and I know you do the breath work. But is there other ways to help people stay grounded and have that positive mindset when they are walking towards that end of life? What are
Mm,
some other tools
mm.
that you can think of for them to stay grounded and have a positive mindset?
I'm definitely going to emphasize prayer and meditation. I feel like beginning the day and perhaps ending the day with prayer meditation, one or the other or both, and then gratitude. That's something I feel like is so important. Whether we feel like we have something monumental that we're grateful for or not. I mean, okay, so we may not think it's monumental that we were given another day of life. We can be grateful for that.
Mhm.
We can be grateful that there's a power that's breathing us. And I'm going to say, however we define that power. You know, some people are not really comfortable with certain words, like, you know, they may not be comfortable with the name God, you know, so call it life, call it the infinite, call it whatever that power is that's greater than you. Okay. And then be grateful that you have that source of strength within you, that you know, there's something that you love about life. Your heart is still beating. You can't make your heart beat, or can you make yourself breathe? You know, we can't. So we're not supposed to do it on our own. I think that's so important to kind of install these set points. When the more they're practiced, okay, the thinking, the experiencing your experience, forgiveness and gratitude really it's so powerful and it empowers us. So if you can write 5 different things in the morning that you find yourself grateful for, you know, the roof over your head, the what you have in the refrigerator, you have food, your friends, community, the birds singing out your window, you know, whatever it might be. It could be really big. It could be large. Oh, I love my family. I have such a wonderful spiritual community. I feel so loved. All of that.
Mm.
And when it comes time to maybe reaching for something, because some days I'm not really feeling like it's coming like like a gush of things that I'm grateful for. I'm being honest. There are times and that happens. And that's what I go to. I go to these fundamentals. We were given another gift of life this day. And yes, our loved one is not here right now, physically present. And we are, and there's a reason. There's a reason for that.
Mm.
It's like, what's my purpose for today?
Mm.
I want to be grateful at the end of the day that I found some way to move forward in my life with purpose.
Mm.
And there's so much to be said about gratitude. It has a very high vibration. It lifts us up when we feel like we're other
Mhm.
other places that are not empowering. You know, we don't prefer them, but we feel powerless. It's like, but what do you do when you just feel like it's a tsunami coming over us, or any ebb and flow? Because everybody has their own definition for that, right? Yeah. So we acknowledge it all, notice it all, be grateful.
Mm.
Be grateful because there's a reason you're here. There is an important reason for you to be here.
Those of you that are listening that you're struggling with that lack of hope, you feel like you don't have anyone around you to comfort you, to speak life into you. One of the things I want to make sure you know is you are never alone. God is there for you. He promises restoration, and that's not just physically, but it's mentally and spiritually. He is with you even in the end of life. If you have never reached out to him and asked him into your heart, I just want to encourage you to reach out to me or reach out to Holly. We can go ahead and explain to you the power of his love, the power of his strength and compassion. He understands your grief. He is, like I said, he's walking with you. He is your firm foundation. And when you have him in your life, it's easier to recognize the gratitude that you have because of everything that he has promised for you. If you're not sure exactly if that's the truth, pour yourself into scripture, open up that Bible and look and see, even through your grief, the promises that he has for you. And again, he loves you so, so much. And there's so many examples in scripture of how individuals who have experienced loss, because they have reached out, their life has been transformed. They literally are standing firm in the storm. So Holly, you have unpacked so many different things, and I so appreciate your heart. And I know we've talked a lot about different tools. I'm going to give you an opportunity to mention one more thing that, or one more client that you have helped with that end of life, end up finding that there is hope, helping them learn that there is joy in life. What is one more tool that you could provide to someone, maybe, like I said, in an example of someone you've worked with?
Well, I'm going to go back to the fact when people are really feeling like they don't have it, they just don't feel like they have that power in them, and it just is, it feels so overwhelming. Each day just feels so overwhelming. So do what you can. Just do what you can. There's something that you can do from where you are. You are where you are in your experience. You don't pretend you're somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Do what you can from where you are with what you've got. And what you've got is way more than you think it is. It's way more. And just with practice, all of this is with practice. And Joy mentioned the compassion, which again, like forgiveness, starts with compassion, a practice of compassion, treating ourselves with compassion. And then it flows out to others because we've experienced that pain and we can identify. It's not the same. Lord, I could just keep going on because a lot of times people will say, I know exactly how you feel.
Oh,
No, nobody knows. We're like so unique in all the world, and how we experience our experience is our own unique experience. It's not anybody else's. We can say, well, I've experienced loss. I know what that heartbreak is like. Since my son died, I go about responding to people's loss in ways that I didn't before. Yeah.
I
I know
did want to also
judgment, it
mention.
sounds like
Oh, sorry, go
judgment,
ahead.
maybe. It's just that people just, we educate them, or we just kind of like, I know they mean the best.
Mhm.
And they could be your best friend, but yeah, sometimes it's just time. I've got an appointment. I need to go.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So there's a couple different resources that I use, and I'm sure that you do as well, Holly. And those of us that are going through grief and loss, either um, someone died suddenly, or someone, it took a long time for them to die, or you are in that stage of your life. Again, you don't need to do this alone. Both of us are here to help you find that purpose in life, to help you with that stage of forgiveness and compassion for yourself, and helping you make those life choices, setting those boundaries, and so much more. There is a book that I hold dear. It's called The Search for Significance, and it helps you find out who you are in learning about how you can live your life going forward. There's several other books as well that are written by Lisa Turkis, and I'll put that in the description as well. And then, of course, there's a program called Grief Share. I think as a life coach, Grief Share doesn't go deep enough with healing. So, like I said, you can reach out to Holly. She offers one-on-one coaching, transformational coaching, specializing in that end of life. As many of you know, I also offer one-on-one life coaching programs specifically towards trauma, which of course, grief and loss is one of those types of trauma, including different types of abuse that you may have experienced. So make sure that you reach out to someone. Do not do this alone. I want to also encourage you today to go ahead and take that time to write down 5 things you are grateful for, because no matter what our adversity, we can embrace the joy that God has for us and walk that road to restoration. Have a blessed day.